What's up, y'all? We are finally back after a long awaited little break, a little hiatus we all took. The book clubbing family is back together. So we have our crew. We get to go over the amazing Trellence by Annabelle. She's going to take us through on a journey. So you guys are going to love this. So I am Simone, author SD Johnson, owner and also partner with these lovely people, Black Phoenix Reading Rebirth. Introduce yourselves.
Okay, hi, my name is Annabelle. Like Simone said, I am the author of The Trellence, and also I have a debut book, which is The Eden Project. Yeah, and I'm just happy to be here to speak with everybody.
And then I'll be adding the Eden Project to the site so people can watch that one too as a playback. 'Cause that was a good one. We had a lot of fun
Oh,
doing the
yeah,
Eden Project.
true.
Yes, yes. Hello, my name is Ed. Big fan of both the authors and Chef, and big time reader.
Trying to get his unmute on. It's all right.
Hey everybody, I'm Chavis, also known as Didymus. I'm the owner of Tetra 127 Apparel, and also just a great fan of these awesome authors, and my homie Ed. So we here for the book clubbing.
All right. So basically, we are going to go through the Trellens. If you guys haven't gotten this book, please go get it. This was the adventure that we didn't know we needed in our arsenal. So at some point, Annabelle, I'm flying to London, so you can go ahead and sign this for me because I need all my
Oh,
books
100%.
autographed. So, but yeah, take us away. We are ready to go on
Okay,
this journey.
okay. So The Trellence, I'll just put a bit of background. It's a dystopian, it's sort of sci-fi kind of fantasy. So we start off with the main character. Her name is Eula. Now, in the beginning of the book, it sets it up that she lives at the top of the mutant trees. So she's a young girl who wants to become a warrior like her father. So the book opens up with her doing her quilling trial. Now, quilling trial is kind of like a marrying ceremony that they do in her village. And so she has to choose a quilling that she wants to be linked with. So it's one of the bachelors in her village, but she can't think of anybody that she wants to be linked with. So she says that she would rather be a fighter like her father than to be somebody's wife. So anyway, we open up at the quilling trial. So they have the elders of the council who are asking her questions, and that's what the quilling trial is. And then she said that she hasn't got anyone in mind when they talk about setting her up. So we move on. She leaves the quilling trial. She's completed it, so she's just waiting now for the ceremony to occur. And we see that she's traveling back home, and there's this part of the ground where she remembers her father fought when he fell. The day he fell through that part of the ground. So there's like it's open still. They have like a warning sign up there. Um, then we meet a few of the people who live on the Trellence, but she gets home and then we meet her young sister Lamb. Lamb she's about 3 years old. She doesn't speak, so it's not that she can't speak. It's just that she has never uttered a word, and she has a little pet called Mr. Squirrels. So Mr. Squirrels is a little capuchin monkey, the smallest type that kind of sits on your shoulders and he's just swinging around the house like he owns the place. And then we meet her mum. So her mum happens to have a parcel for her, which is a present, and she opens it, and it's a dress and some earrings. Now, because her father was once head of the army for the king, they had high standing in society. But after her father fell, there was no male in the family to look after the family, so they kind of fell down the totem pole. They became like the poorer of the community, so they had nothing to trade with. So when Eula sees his dress, she's a bit like, oh, where did you get that from? I don't want to owe anybody any money or owe anyone else. But her mum convinces her that, oh, don't worry, you need to look good for the ball. So anyway, we go through to we see Lamb, and so Lamb, her little sister, and Eula. They sit down and they have a little Eula explains the story to them about the Trellence and how it came to be the way that it was. And it's between two. This is how the story goes in her village, between two brothers, Cray and Lindsay. And Lindsay and Cray were meant to set up a civilization for their people, but one of them they split up. One of them went to the top of the Trellence, and the second one went after him so that they can join their forces, but it never happened. So Eula has this the village as well have a kind of like a mentality that they hate the trawlers because they were cast to like the lower levels. Because they believe that they killed Lindsay, so Lindsay never made it back because they believe their people killed him. So they have a hate between the two tribes. And then and then we go back to the school. But I just want to let you give some feedback before I continue.
All right, who wants to go first? Because I got words.
You go ahead first.
Okay, so explain a little bit more about visually what this looks like, because in my mind I always think about Return of the Jedi, like when they go to visit the Ewoks. Remember how the Ewoks, they lived like in the top of the trees, and like there were bridges that connect their little huts and things like that, and then it was like these giant redwoods. So that's kind of what I envision. And then if you're looking down, it's kind of like fog and a pit and black. You don't really know what's down there. And so visually that's what I see. And then I like that the story immediately starts off with like some kind of folklore that, we'll get more into later, but like there's already this like mystery kind of hovering around the first part of the book.
Yeah, so for me, the Trellence does the way that you envision it is a bit how I see it as well. But they use like the trees are massive, so they use the leaves like floor, like they use tree sap to like cement the floor, and then they have hubs which are kind of like ergonomically designed. So you'll see that the training camp, for example, is built with cobwebs, like silk. It's made out of silk from big spiders. But it's like, so it's all economically, but it's how you envision it. But like just it's like sometimes it's like massive. It's just huge. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. All right.
I was just from the very beginning, just the whole story about the quilling and the process of being chosen, and you could feel that she wasn't down with that process at all. And I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna get good.
He's on mute, and don't trip, he'll get it.
All right, sorry y'all. Yeah, so I was just thinking about the whole kind of the background story, and almost every show you watch or every book you read, you hear the initial story, and you always wonder like, is this really what happened? Because somehow, some way, it always turns out that that ain't really what happened, or that's just their side of the story, and so you already like, man, you starting out with drama already. What's really about to go down?
That's great. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. So she goes back to the academy the next day, and we see that she has beef with Asher, who is he has been sort of dating her cousin, but Asher expresses that he doesn't care for her cousin, but he knows that she's going to pick him for the quilling child. Now, when like Yula at this point is isolated, the boys in the academy do not talk to her because it's frowned upon for girls to join warrior school because they expect girls to become mothers and to like learn how to cook and to clean and to do all those things. So she's the only female in the warrior school. So they go to their class, and we come to meet a very important character, Orion. He is actually the prince of the Trellence, and he pits Asher. He's like a big guy and he's very popular against Eula, and Eula beats him, but Orion tries to intervene and like he tries to make it. He wants her to keep fighting until she loses, but so she gets angry with him and calls him a blanca, which is a very offensive word to a Trellencer. So he threatens her and then he leaves. So they go back to her. She goes back home that day, and then they announce that the quilling ball. So at school they announce it's the quilling ball, but when she goes home that day, she has to get ready and go to the quilling ball, but she doesn't want to go because everybody in her village kind of like they kind of like they try to oust her. They don't want her to be. They just want to. I don't know what's the word. It's to like they kind of they make her outcast. That's
Yeah,
I'll
like
say that they make her
like
outcast. Yeah,
ostracise her from
they ostracize
yeah,
her. Yeah, exactly. So it's like she's kind of like a pariah in their minds.
Yep.
So she goes to the quilling ball. She meets her friends. They insult her. They tell her. They say that, oh, it's because you want to be sleeping with all the boys in the academy. That's the reason you wanted to go and be a warrior. So she's got this in her mind, and she's gone into the ball, and then to her surprise, the person they link her up with is Orion, the prince. And that is the last person on earth that she wants to be linked to. So she runs home. So they do have a dance, but then after that, she can't take it anymore. She gets up, leaves, and runs home. And then later on, she goes back to school the next day, and Orion mocks her, and it's the first time she loses a fight because he uses his like knowledge about her against her. He says to her, "Oh yeah, you have 8 kids for me," and she gets really like shaken and she runs home. And then we meet Darvard. Darvard is the king's advisor. So Eula does not like Darvard because he doesn't seem to like women or children. So she has a very immediate aversion towards him. But he also lost an eye, like one of his eyes is damaged, like he can't see out of his eyes. It happened 3 years ago, and it happened to be around the same time her father fell. But yeah, and that's the time around that Lamb was born as well. So she doesn't speak because of the trauma her mum must have gone through. So anyway, he comes to the house. He warns her that if you don't marry Orion, they're going to kick them out of the Trellence, and they're going to have to live in the wild, which is very vicious, and most people can't survive out by themselves, and especially since you've got a little child and 2 women. But so he warned her, he threatens her that if you break this you'll be cast out from our village. So she realizes that she has to carry on with this arrangement. So it comes to a point where they have a meeting, like a meeting is called in the evening. So it's kind of like everybody's shocked and surprised why they have to wake up in the middle of the night and go to this event. But the king informs her that the Cordon Warriors are coming. They've been spotted on the horizon coming towards their village. Now, the Cordon Warriors are very aggressive warriors. So they destroy everything they see. So they decide that they're going to flee and go to the next branch down and join forces with that family. One of the things I did not mention is that one of the reasons why her father, when he fell, that she believes that he will never return, is because of white fever. Mm-hmm. Now, white fever is a virus that once you catch it, after a while, it turns you into like a zombie. So you become extremely strong and you kill everything and anyone that surrounds you. So yeah, so if you do fall, you're not allowed to come back up. They will kill you on as soon as you arrive there, because they fear that you might have caught the white fever. So her father who fell, she feared that even if he did survive, he wouldn't be able to come back because of the white fever. So anyway, they go on this journey towards this other branch, and then Lamb goes missing. Her little sister goes missing, and so she believes she's gone back because Mr. Squirrels disappeared just before they left. So she believes she's gone back to go find Mr. Squirrels, who's probably gone back to the house because of the journey that they've gone on. And so Eula gets 3 other warriors with her, and they go back to where their village is. And then she hears Lamb scream, so she runs over to Lamb and she turns around and sees that there's 3 Cordon Warriors there. So they fight with the warriors that she's with, and they kill them. And so Eula has to fight and defend her and her little sister, and she manages to do that. But then, when in the process, she kills these Cordon Warriors. But Mr. Darvard, the king's advisor, comes, picks up Lamb, and then she thinks he's going to come and give it to her, but he pushes her off the Trellence. So can you tell me what you think about that aspect? I've gone through a lot there, so I wanted to just cover some grounds. Yeah.
Well, going back a little bit, when she was paired up with Orion, and so I was like, oh yeah, this is when it's going to get good as far as the old Quillen scenario. And at this point, and then further down the line, Lamb, I was really curious, when she ran off about what's Lamb's part in the story and what's going on with her, with her being a little sister and all. So yeah, I'm hooked and ready to roll now.
Yeah, so I like looking at all the social aspects of everything. And so, when I heard about the white fever and everything, I immediately started thinking about COVID and just how even then everybody kind of was like separating you into piles and stuff. Like, if you get COVID, you're gonna die, and you gotta get vaccinated, and that's gonna save you from COVID. And at one point it was like you couldn't sneeze around somebody. They'd be like, oh, do you got COVID? Are you sick? Like, what's your temperature? All this, like, and it was such an uproar about it. And, some information was getting out, other misinformation was getting out. And, even to this day, we still don't have all the true story. And so you don't kind of know what to believe sometimes. And I think that's kind of what it was sounding like with the white people. Like, man, this is the big story behind everything. But is that really true? Has anybody verified any of this? Has anybody gotten free of white fever and, got cured? Like, how did this all work? So that's why I started thinking about the social impacts of everything.
Okay. So, couple different things here. First of all, she must have been singing TLC, What About Your Friends, at the dance thing because, like, first of all, I'm gonna show up and y'all finna troll me. Not even cool. And then you have the whole Orion thing. Not a fan of this dude. But then we get to this point in the book, and so I'm already captivated and I'm into it. But then I'm also thinking, how are you gonna kick a 3-year-old baby off the little thing, and now she's going down? And so, like, I couldn't even imagine like just watching that scene and then thinking of like how that fire kind of bubbled up inside of Eula.
Mm.
Like, this ain't it. I gotta go get my girl. And now I gotta fight these dudes off. And so she's kind of watching everything. And then you have old boy with his patch on his eye. You don't like kids or women. That's why you got a patch on your eye, because he's out here being
Mhm.
salty. But there's a whole lot going on. And then if you look, I think we're still only at like chapter 8 at this point, like
Mm.
chapter 9, chapter 8. So I mean,
Yeah,
like,
chapter
so
9,
this,
yeah.
yeah, so I think this is the point in the story where they say it's the inciting incident. This is where the
Yeah.
adventure begins to take off. And so, yeah, keep going. But yeah, this is where
Mhm.
everything begins to just spiral for Eula.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to mention was that so Darvar doesn't throw Lamb off he pushes Eula. So he still has Lamb in his hands.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
yeah. So he's still got her, but he pushes Eula and Eula falls. And so the last thing she sees is her little sister screaming, Eula, don't fall. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
That doesn't, yeah,
she
Eula,
falls.
not Lamb. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eula falls. So she falls, and then so it's a very long distance from the top of the trees down to the ground again because it's quite because they're mutant trees. But she falls into a lagoon. She doesn't know how to swim, but while she's down there, she sees that they're mer creatures. So the scientists that developed the world were like crazy scientists, and they developed mutant creatures that now roam the lower levels. So there's 5 different levels. There's there's creepers level, which is the one she falls to, and then she manages to survive by holding onto the reeds and pulling herself up, but she loses her dad's bracelet that her dad gave her, stone bracelet, which is precious on the Trellence. So she manages to get herself out there, just about escaping these mermaids, and then she runs straight into I call them like they're like poly I forgot the name. It's a poly I can't remember there's a creature which it buries itself in the ground and it covers the surface. So you'll think you're walking on the ground, but when you step onto it, you fall in and it eats you up. And the creature was inspired by like like a cactus kind of plant. So yeah, she managed to survive that by luck, just pure luck. And then she comes across a snake. Now she doesn't know what a snake is, even though they should, because they're so big that they don't go to the top of the Trellence. So she manages to escape that, and then she goes into like quicksand, and so all of these like she just realizes how vicious like the creepers level is, and then a creature comes and saves her from the quicksand, and it's we call it a Wolpertinger, and so it saves her, but she calls it Fluffy. So she calls this creature Fluffy because it's white and fluffy. It looks like a rabbit. It's got wings and it's got like horns, and so it helps her out of the quicksand and saves her life. So she now has got a friend that she can kind of cling to. Now she's down there, and it offers her some level of safety because when she goes to sleep, it brings her up into the trees, and like the next day she decides that she's going to try and use this creature to get back up the levels. So she gets on its back trying to fly, but she realizes that Fluffy can't fly very high and can't fly very fast. And all of a sudden she hears like this rumbling noise. And when she looks back, there's like a stampede of animals coming in their direction. So Fluffy is trying to keep afloat. She's trying to stay on the back of the creature, but she's slipping off. And then she eventually falls, but she lands into the hands of the creature that looks like a man but has boils all over his face. And so he saves her from, there's a big creature that's more like a dinosaur, it's like a T-Rex kind of creature. He saves her from that, but she doesn't trust humanoids because in her culture, humanoids can they're cannibals, they eat people.
Mm-hmm.
So this humanoid takes her to where there's water. So the humanoid first of all kills Fluffy, and that is the worst thing that could have happened for her because Fluffy was her friend and Fluffy had saved her life. And so she becomes distraught, tries to kill the humanoid, but he is too strong for her. And so he manages to floor her and he just throws her over his shoulder and walks, and he proceeds to go back into the forest again. So what did you think about,
So I'll go. And I want to say, this part of the book, I was a nervous wreck. You had me. I remember I was downstairs in my living room. The lights were low. I had to go turn the lights on because I'm just thinking about that poor. I mean, there were things coming at her from underneath, this way, that way. I mean, nothing was safe. I felt so sorry for Eula because I mean, it was like boom, boom, something was coming to attack her, kill her, and then the humanoid with the boils on this. I was like, man, yeah, that was a lot. I was all over the place.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was giving me never-ending story. Like the way you write, I visually like see stuff in my head, like my imagination goes off, like just from the way you describe certain things. So it's like when a trail was in the swamp of sadness, and then the wolf was coming, and then the flying dog thing comes down and takes him up. That's what I imagine that whole scene of like Fluffy being. And then yeah, so when the humanoid comes up, this was a point where I was like, okay, she's gonna end up fighting him. But little do we know, other stuff begins to take place. So it's like every time you think you know what's getting ready to happen, it kind of sets the stage for that next piece of like, oh dang, I didn't see that coming. So visually spot on.
Yeah, I kind of had the same kind of visualization, thinking like kind of like Never Ending Story meets Legend meets Clash of the Titans. Kind of like, it's all these different levels of you fight one thing or escape one thing and you turn around and you can't even breathe because here comes something else. And it's like it's always keeping you on edge. And then, you got this little buddy who you think is like your homie, and then the next thing that comes up kills your little homie. So now it's like, dang, what am I supposed to do now? This was my only source of comfort, and you're going through all this trauma and stuff, and now you don't know what to think with this big humanoid thing with the boils on it. It's ugly, and you just like, oh man, what's about to happen to her? It's about to go down. So
Yeah. So yeah, we see. So she takes her to the river, and while she looks into the river, she's to take some to drink some water because he. So what happens first is that he covers her in goop. It's like the waste of an animal. So because he discovers that she's on her period, so she smells of blood. So she's attracting all of these like vicious creatures. So he covers her in this nasty goop. She doesn't want to do it herself. He plats her hair for her. She never lets anyone touch her hair. So it's just like a kindness that she's not felt in a long time. And so she goes to he saves her from being attacked by a lion. But when she goes to wash her face or to drink some water, she sees a catfish swim past, and because catfish are black, she's the mirror. It becomes like a mirror. The water on top of the black fish makes her see her reflection, and she looks exactly like the humanoid. But she discovers, oh, he's not a humanoid; he's a human who's just covered himself in this gunk. So yeah, so she so angry at him attacks him, but then they attract like bats, so big massive bats that come in and try to attack her. So he saves her again, and then they continue through the forest. And because she decides that she has to stick by him because she doesn't know how to get back up again. The trees are too wide to climb, and so she's forced, and they're just too big. So she's forced to have to follow this guy who seems to know the forest in order to get back to where she wants to go. So she follows him. At one point, she does see Fluffy again, a creature that is the same as Fluffy, but she sees the creature for what it truly is. It's a scary, like beast creature, and it does eat. It eats the weak, so it lives off of serotonin and stuff like that. The love chemicals in our body. So that's why it's made to look so gentle and so fluffy, because it actually feeds off of people's emotions. So that continues. So they continue through the woods, and then they come to an old abandoned mall. But because her people have never really seen these kind of structures before, they consider it to be a magical place. So he leads her up the escalator, but they call it the carry-upper. So they go up this escalator and they go to the next level, which is crawler's level. And so they go together. So he wants to leave her, but she refuses to be left behind. She's like, no, I'm going to come with you because I need to get back home. And so he lets her follow him. He says, you can follow me as far as I'm going to go, which is to his home, because he's a trawler. So this is another reason why she tried to kill him, because he was a trawler and they're like enemy tribes. So she decides she'll follow him. So he says to her, you can come as far as I'm willing to go, which is to his homeland. And then they come across a village, or it's more like a market, and they discovered that there's like a slave trade going on in the market as well. So she thinks that he's brought her here to sell her so he can make money off of her initially. And then then they discover that actually no, he just came to buy a new flask because she destroyed his old flask. So, and to get her some clothes to wear. So yeah, what do you think about it at this point? Like, what was your impression about what was going on at that point?
I mean, can you just imagine how on guard she is, like from everything that's happening? And then, like, I've never read any kind of like fantasy or anything to where you actually bring in like, yes, girls be going on their cycle and this is what happens. And so, why wouldn't the beast be attracted to her if that's what he's out to get for prey? And so you have that element coming in. So she's stressed out about that. And then I can tell, like, just from how she responded to him, she's still uncertain if she can even trust him. And so now here we are in this marketplace, and it's just like adding another level of like, see, this is why I can't fool with you. But then when she understands, okay, it's a flash, you know, I'm humbled, but I'm still on guard, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for me at this point, I'm like, ooh, it's like calmed down. Like I said before, when everything was attacking her, and I was like, ooh, this is the part where just, things seem to be leveling out because, I'm still on the, what's next agenda. I try not to look too far ahead when I'm reading and just enjoy the story at the moment. But I was like, ooh, let's calm down a little. Especially when she was looking at the catfish. Sorry, sir.
Oh no, I was just gonna say good for you, Ed, because I'm always thinking ahead to my detriment. Sometimes I'll be trying to make up the story in my own head and still be wrong. But yeah, this was another thing that kind of felt like so societal. A lot of people from like that aren't from like the inner city have a different view on what the inner city is like. And so if they end up getting trapped down there sometime and they need somebody from the inner city to kind of help them navigate that new world, they see everything as being negative until like in this instance she had to put all the mud and stuff on her face and on her body and stuff and he's trying to help her out and she doesn't realize it until she basically looks herself in the mirror and is like, oh, this person is just like me. They just been through a lot. They have a lot of stuff covering them. And if I get covered with the same stuff that they're covered with, I would look just like them. And so just kind of bringing back again that societal aspect to it, like, man, there's a lot of people who we may look at as different, but we don't understand that if we go on a journey that they going on, if we walked a mile in their shoes, then we may just look just like them. And so we got to stop trying to judge people by, don't judge a book by its cover. It's a pretty good one for this.
Thank you. That's very insightful. Wow.
I mean,
I love
and then
that,
like,
yeah.
and then not only that, like she was gonna need this person to navigate the rest of the journey. So it's like if you discount him because of what you've been brought up to understand about what goes on down there, you may miss your opportunity to survive. And so I think, even that, like what Chev is saying about the society, it's like it's playing all into like, the specific parts of her journey that we're actually gonna get to. So we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna tell everybody where to go get this book and how to tap in with Annabelle and the rest of the crew here, and we'll be right back. What's up, you guys? I hope you guys are enjoying this new edition of Book Clubbing brought to you by the Black Phoenix Reading Rebirth family. We are engaging in the Trellence by A.T. Nartey. You can get her book right now on Amazon, so be sure to go over there as soon as you're done with this. And you can also follow her on all her social media handles at A.T. Nartey on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. All right, you guys, so we're back. BPRR, book clubbing. We're going through the Trellence by the amazing Annabelle A.T. Nartey. And so right now we're kind of diving into about the middle of the book. So we're like at chapter 18. So let's keep going, Annabelle. Take us there.
Okay. So we get to a point where they leave the market because Trendon's a bit concerned, like the way that they're looking at Eula and him as well. But they go to a little clearing where they come and settle down. And in this part of the book, you get to know both of them a bit better. They get to know each other more than anything else. So she asks him, why were you down? Like she questions why was he down there? And he tells her that he went to get a stone and it was a rose quartz stone. And she asks him, why would you want that stone? And he said he went down there to purposely get it for somebody he knows. And so, okay, so we learn a bit about him that he was left behind because his father is like an explorer. We'll get to that a bit later down the line anyway. But he was there with a party, but they left early because he wanted to find this stone. So we know this stone is very important to him, but yet we don't know why. So Eula has a bit of a nightmare. She freaks out and she she realizes the impact that it's going to have on her family if she doesn't get back to the Trellence soon. So she freaks out a bit, has a panic attack, and Trendon calms her down. And then they go to bed on a good terms. And then the next thing she knows is that somebody's like has grabbed a hold of her and has put like something against her mouth. And then she blacks out and she wakes up inside a cage inside the market. So she has been kidnapped by the slavers who they saw earlier. So she's in there with a few other people, a strange creature like a human hybrid, and a woman who's lying on the floor, but she's not moving. So anyway, Eula being Eula, knowing how to fight and how to defend herself, she decides that she has to save herself, but she doesn't think Trendon will come looking for her. So she saves herself by killing all of the traders and a lot of the other people who are running the other markets when they come to try and defend the slavers. And then she realizes that, wait a minute, she's not cut out for killing, because she just can't get over the fact that there's blood. She's just murdered like tons of people, and this is kind of the first time she's really done this to such a large amount of people, like killed quite a few. And so then Trendon turns up, and she doesn't realize how much he needed his support, like how much he needed him to be around. So he says that they should release all of the captives. So they go around releasing all the captives. Eula just wants to get back because she's like, I haven't got time for this. I need to save my family. I don't know what happened to my little sister. I don't know if Darvard threw her down or not. That hasn't been concluded. So they release all of the captives, and now there's a captive who doesn't escape, and it's the woman who was lying down. She's blue and she's got like horns, and she's a fairy, and she has a baby in her hands, and she's like, can you deliver, she says to Trendon, can you deliver my baby back to my people? And then that's the last thing she says before she dies, and he promises her that he would. Now Eula is distraught. She's upset with him because, why would you do this? I need to get back to my people. I need to save my family. And so, but he convinces her that they should go and do the right thing and deliver the baby. So they go, and then we get to the fun and game section of the story. So they've collected all the stuff that they need from the market, and then we see that there's a waterfall. So Trendon shows her to the waterfall. So they put the baby down because the baby's sleeping, and they just splash around the waterfall, get into like a little water fight, and you can see that they're growing closer in like, you know, in their relationship. And so then they continue down the journey. There are a few other obstacles, but I won't go into each thing that happens. So there's a few other obstacles, but they managed to make it to the fairy kingdom. And so Trendon lies and says that they're quillings, but he's like, we just can't let them know that that's a lie. They throw them in prison, and they take the baby, and then they're brought in front of the king, and the king asks them, where did you find this child? And they explain the situation to the king, and then he gets one of his truth tellers to like decipher if they're telling the truth or not, and they agree that he's telling the truth. So in honor of bringing it turns out that the baby is actually the king's heir. He was having an affair with one of his servants, and her name was Vida, the woman that was in the cage. He was having an affair with her, and so she ran away with the baby because she was trying to get away from the queen. So it doesn't quite go that much into detail in the story, but that's why. So anyway, they said, we'll have a ball in honor of you. So they have a ball in honor of Trendon and Eula, and they get all dolled up, and then Eula just wants to go home at this point. They get dolled up, and then the king gives her they give each of them one wish for bringing back the heir. And Trendon just asks for his stuff back, so he gets that. Eula asks him to send an army with her and Trendon to her upper level so she can save her people. But then just as she makes her wish, arrow comes and hits the king right in the middle of his head, and he drops down dead. So what did you think about that? Yeah.
To me, this was like another just wild plot twist. The whole baby, because Eula, how hot she was, she did not have no time for this baby. They were slowing down her process. She wasn't with that at all. And then just coming to find out the backstory of the baby and who the baby's father was and all that. Just another good plot twist.
Yeah, I thought everything was going really well. It seemed like everything was going full speed ahead, and they get thrown in prison, but then they get out, and it's the truth teller's like, yeah, they telling the truth, this, that, and other, and you get your wish, and all right, he just want his stuff back, and she like, all right, I need an army. All right, cool, I'll get you your army, bam, and then he dies. It's like, oh man, now is she go get her army? Is there another army already outside? Is this a coup? Like, what's going on? Somebody mad because he got a baby on the side. Like, this is just all types of things start going through your brain. Like, man, I got to see what's about to happen next.
Yeah, and then I appreciated that right off of the bat, she wasn't feeling trending. So it was kind of like that slow burn between the characters. Like I feel like her eyes are open. She can see, okay, he all right, but she's very mission minded when it comes to this. She's still keeping the eye on the prize with what she's trying to do. And then I appreciated, her showing frustration, like, we're not here for all this. Like, you're on your own little quest. I'm on my quest. Like, this is not what this is about. I'm trying to get home. So I appreciated that. So that it wasn't, overly about their relationship, but still very much about the mission. And then when they meet up with this king, I was initially reading it the first time through, and it was just kind of like, okay, she could trust this guy. Like, it's all good. But then I'm like, okay, well, can you really trust somebody who had a little side baby with his little servant? So there has to be more, coming. And so I was like, this is about to get uncovered as well. So we're still going good.
Okay, that's good. No, that's good. Yeah, good points as well. So one thing I didn't mention is that they get a bit closer in the ball. You see the traction between the two characters, and she takes a truth potion. Well, it's a wine. She drinks wine, but she doesn't realize fairy wine is always a truth potion. So she releases that. She lets him know that he's attracted to him in some ways. Yep. But anyway, so they flee, and it looks like the Cordon Warriors have. So there was a premonition in part of the book where they believe the Cordon Warriors are taking over the different levels, and so this is the first point that it has been confirmed because the Corner Warriors have attacked the fairies' kingdom. So Eula and Trendon, they're like, we just have to get out of here, get as far away as here from as possible. So they fight their way out of the fairy village. And I felt bad because I left the fairies to defend for themselves, but
they'll be all right, yeah, the fairies.
Yeah, the fairies, but like, yeah, so they make their way back. Trendon gets injured. He gets injured in his arm, and so Eula is just trying to get him to safety. They get to a point where he collapses and he's not able to get any up, but they're close to where they need to go to get to the next level. And then the Cordon Warriors catch up to them. Eula fights many of them, kills a lot of them, but she's just not strong enough to kill all of them. So she gets to her, they grab her, she gets to her knees. You think they're going to kill her, and then she gets hit in the back of the head and she blacks out. When she awakes next, she's on the back of a big bulky guy, and Trendon's been carried by the men around her, the men that are surrounding them, and they go to the carry upper, which is like an elevator to the next level. She discovers that one of the guys, his name's Gunther, who is the leader of this group, he is Trendon's dad. So she's like, oh, okay. And then she realizes, oh, we're going to Trawler's level, where her enemies, this is the land of her enemies. So they go to Trawler's level, they take Trendon away to be treated. She doesn't know if he's dead or alive. And so she's thrown into prison. But then thankfully, a new character is introduced. Trendon's sister comes to heal her, because throughout that the previous stage, she gets burnt on her leg through trying to escape. So she gets Trendon's sister Tricene to come and heal her in the prison. And then her sister Trendon's sister convinces her dad to let Eula come and stay with them. So she goes and stays with Eula's dad in Trendon's house. Sorry, they go and stay in Trendon's house, and she realizes that his dad Gunther doesn't seem to like her. He doesn't show any kind of niceness towards her. So she's a bit like, okay, I'm just gonna tread lightly. So she does at that point, and then she goes with Tricene to the market. She's out. Everybody sees that she's different. Everybody else there is white, and she's the only black person. But Trendon and Tricene, I haven't mentioned this before, they're mixed race. Their mother was black and their father is a white guy. So they're like, yeah. So you get that impression. So what did you think? I just want to know what you thought when you got to the Trawlers level. What was your impression like?
So for me, I was curious. I just remember Trendon and Eula kind of going back and forth, and she just thought Trawlers, their level was like the lowest of lowest, and he was like, it's not that bad, and he was basically saying, I don't know what you've been told, but it's not true. And then just the simple fact who he was and what he was trying to do, and I was like, they're not all bad. So two sides of every story, or just depends on one person's opinion or the agenda.
Yep. I agree completely. And then this is also, I think, the hugest eye-opener in this story, where we see that level of societal classism, kind of like what Chev was talking about, then like what Ed is saying, she's visually seen as different, and just how she had her perception, now she's catching it on the other way, because now this is what they think of her. And so she begins to see okay, like there is a difference going on here. So, yes, we're wrapped up in a fantasy, but we're also bringing in some stuff that still goes on today, like in our world that actually really happens. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
True.
Yeah, I definitely looked at that as well. Just kind of the classism and semi-racism and stuff and everything, especially when you consider that they were a mixed race family, but yet they were able to, I guess you could say, in our terms, they were able to pass at something else, and so they were able to still look down on other people and be like, oh, well, no, you're not like us, so we don't like you, and have that kind of mentality about somebody else, not knowing like your kids is half of that anyway. So what's the whole problem, But still, as we see even in our everyday lives, people have that kind of mentality, and they'll put down even a part of them own selves just to raise another part of themselves up.
It's true. It's true. So we see that. So Tricine goes to the hospital to see Trendon, and they trick her father so that Eula can go and see him because she does. His father doesn't want her to come to go and see Trendon because he wants them to be as far apart as possible. She goes to see Trendon, and while she's there, she brings his stone, the stone that he went all that way to go and get. And then they're interrupted. She's interrupted, giving it back to him by a woman who walks into the room, and her name is Kathleen, and she learns that this is Trendon's quilling. And Kathleen comes in, takes the stone from her, and said that was for me. He went to get that for me, and so she's distraught, and so she kind of just flees the place and goes back home. So she's upset for many days, and Gunther, Trendon's father, is like, oh, I told you. He tells his daughter off. He's like, I told you not to take her to go see him, because now it's just made a bad situation for everybody. So Kathleen, when Trendon heals and gets better, he comes back to the house. He's not properly better, but he's like he can be looked after at home. So when he comes back home, there's an awkwardness between them. She just asks him, well, I wish you had told me that you had a quilling. And he's like, but you have a quilling, because she said to him earlier that she's going to be a princess. So it's like, no one is in the right at the moment. But and then so Kathleen comes to visit Trendon, and then she says she gets upset. She doesn't want Eula to be around him, so she gets Gunther, Trendon's father, to send her away. So Trendon's father sends her to orphanage where there's little kids, and so Eula she's already upset. She's on Trawler's level. She doesn't want to be there, but she wants someone to get home. And then a girl comes in and she's introduced. Her name's Ellie. Her name's Ellie Black, and so Ellie is friendly to Eula. Eula first rejects her, but then she's like, oh, I can use her to get to know where to find warriors. So Ellie gives her information about where to find fighters in the community. So she goes to the den, and the den is where the men of the village come together. Women are not allowed. So she goes in, and then she meets Lord Zephram. So Lord Zephram seems to be a well-respected man in the community. He seems to be wealthy, and he tries to persuade them to fight with Eula for the riches of old, which is what they call the wealth in their community. But Gunther comes in and captures her, and as he walks her home, he explains to her why that he doesn't hate her and why he's been acting the way that he's been acting towards her. So she goes back to the orphanage, and then later on she goes back and she goes to find where the men and boys are trained to be warriors. So she convinces them to join her, and so she convinced them to join her on the journey. And so and then that day she goes back home, and she's like, the only thing I have to do now is to go and get Trendon to show me how to get to the next level. So she does that. She goes to see Trendon, and Castelline is there. And so Castelline, it's like, why are you letting her come talk to you? I don't want to see you two together. And so Trendon intervenes between them, because it got to a point where there could have been a physical fight, which Eula faced up to Castelline. So, and then Trendon, he gets in the middle of it. So he just convinces Kathleen to go home. He says, I'll come and see you later. Don't worry about us. And she's like, but people will talk. And he's like, don't worry about what people say, blah, blah, blah. So they go on their walk. So just before I go into the latter section, what did you guys think about that section of the book?
So for me, it was the backstories of the Kulin from Eula and Orion, sorry. And then Trendon and Cassidy. Yeah. Anyway, what the backstory of their families, how the mom wanted Eula off, and then the father needed Trendon to be with Cassidy because what's been owed, or the favors and everything. So to me, that was a good backstory to it.
Mm.
Yeah, I like the drama of Kathleen trying to, step up and be like, look, I don't even know why she here. She don't need to be talking to you, this, that, and the other. And then you look like, man, I got hands for you if you got something to say. And so Trina got to step in and kind of be like, hey, you go home. I'll be there later. I'll talk to you later. Let me handle this. Like, because he didn't want to see her get whooped like that. Like, even if he is really feeling Eula, he still don't want to see his girl get whooped like that. So.
Yeah, I think am I okay, no, sorry, I was trying to mute. No, the banter, the dialogue was really good in that moment of like, oh, you didn't tell me you had a little side piece. And he's like, well, what about you? Because you told me, so it's kind of like that dynamic of like, dang, the slow burn is starting to fizzle out here. And then I did appreciate the father stepping up and giving Eula that information because like she's been, running around this whole time. Like, I don't know what his beef is with me. And then she realizes like it really wasn't even about her. It was about all the stuff that happened in the past that they still haven't resolved. And so she was just kind of caught up in the middle of that. And so I think that that also gave her clarity in going into the next segment of the story on it kind of changed her trajectory of how she decided to go forward at that point.
Exactly. So just I didn't mention before, but just in case people are interested, the reason why Trendon's dad also supports Trendon being with Kathleen is because he owed her father money, so it's kind of like an arrangement. So that's probably what you're talking about. So yeah. So anyway, so then we go to the point where Eula's now got everything she needs to go into on their venture back up to the top level, but they are called to a meeting by the Cordon Warriors. And then they say they've caught the black girl at the orphanage. And so she's like, oh no, they've caught me because, they think that I'm plotting against them. And it wasn't so but they captured the wrong person. Ellie is killed. They've killed Ellie and they've thrown her to the crowd. And Eula's distraught. She wants, because they intended to find her. But because Ellie's name's Ellie Black, they assumed when they said the black girl from the orphanage that it was Ellie that they were referring to. So everybody gets distraught. They start fighting each other. And then Eula wants to get involved, but Trendon's like, no, you stay back. I'm going to fight. I'm like, she's worried about him because he's injured. And then just as it seems like he's going to be defeated, the fairies turn up. So with the fairies, there's Rose. Rose she met when she was at the fairies village. And then there's Dida. So they come together and they like, okay, Rose says, well, I'll take you home and I'll heal you, because Rose has the ability to heal. So she takes them back. She heals Eula. She heals Trendon. And then they decide, with the gathering of men, they're going to try and make it up to the next level. So they go to the next level and then they manage to get up to the Abyss. The Abyss is the fourth level in between the Trellence and the Trawlers level. But the Abyss is one of the most dangerous parts in the world, so because it's got the creatures are more vicious, and because they discover that it has white fever at the Abyss. So anyway, they have to defeat a lot of other creatures. There's like plants that almost kill them. There is like zombies, like people who've been turned by white fever, and then they get attacked by a mist of something that they can't tell is inside the mist, and it kills people. And Gob, one of Gunther's men, who's also come with them, he gets infected, but they don't know what it is that has infected him. So they lose a few people as they go up from the Abyss to the Trellence, but they manage to make it back to the top without most of the people still alive. And so then they go there, and then they can see that the Cordon Warriors have brought the villagers back to the village. And also she discovers that, they've gathered all the people, and like in the other levels, they want to take them back over the wall to someone called Mycroft. So Mycroft, we don't know who he is. He's a bad guy. And this could potentially be like part 2 of this book, but because we don't really get to discover who he is yet, but maybe in a later book or something. But yeah, so she starts to fight one of the leaders, and it turns out the leader of the Cordon Warriors is her father, and she can tell because of the fighting that they do. He fights exactly the same way that she fights, because he was the one who trained her how to fight. So what did you think about that revelation?
I think that part was probably my favorite part of the story. Like just the mimicking of the way they were fighting, and then she's having that like aha moment, like, hold on a minute, like how would this person know I'm gonna counteract like this? How would this person move like this? Is so similar. So I enjoyed that part. But then I was feeling kind of like Ed was when he was initially talking about having to go turn on the lights. I'm like, the abyss was no joke. And like, can you imagine like going through there? I imagine myself with a COVID mask, I got a knife, I got a gun, whatever it takes to get through there. Because I mean, what I was thinking, like, okay, so we know the white fever is here. So is that something that's inhaled? We don't even, at this point know what's going on. So I'm like, are they masked up? So that part had me stressed. But then I was very excited to see her have that realization, like, oh, that's my pops. That was cool.
Yeah, that fight scene for me was everything. I was like actually cheering when she found out that it was her father, and it just kind of goes back to what Trendon was told her earlier. Is like what you've been told is not necessarily the truth, and that's how I was like, because she thought her father was gone. I fell down, and here he is. So it was just another plot twist, and I was excited. That made me clap for once. Instead of being scared and protective
Oh,
and
wow.
turning lights on, I was like, oh, I was happy about that.
Yeah, I thought just the whole scene of all the white fever and everything, just like, man, like, are these people, like, are they on some ayahuasca or something, or like some PCP, like are they really actually sick, or are they just crazy, like what's going on, and then to get up to the fight scene and everything and get me thinking about Luke and Darth Vader, like I am your father, like it's like, dang, like this is crazy. I would have never thought that this was how this was going to turn out. So it was really, really engaging.
No, I think that was the dopest plot twist, was seeing that part come into place. That was dope.
Oh, thank you.
One more
So
thing.
Oh, sorry.
One more thing. I think I was just happy because I was like, man, Eula has a friend. I mean, it's a father, but she has somebody that's solid in her side that she can trust. So,
And then even
It's
to
true.
that point, like, okay, so this is where I needed clarity as the reader. So with Trendon saying, like, just like Ed said, like, you don't know everything, and giving her that kind of warning, like, in my mind, I'm like, so was Eula like side-eyeing him after that realization? Like, bro, did you know this whole time? And you just chose not to say anything? So I was also thinking about that too.
Oh, I never thought about that one. Let's see. Yeah. So when they go, so her father, he reveals himself to be the lead warrior of the Cordon Warriors, and he's done this because he knew if he tried to come back without an army, they would kill him on the spot. And the only way he could get back to his people was to come with an army, so that he could protect himself. He's played two sides. So when she goes, so Lamb is there. So Lamb, because another thing that I didn't mention before is Lamb, when Mr. Darvard did not throw her down, he kept hold of her because she can't
Right.
speak. She's not a threat to him or his plans, but she can't speak, or she doesn't speak. So he's kept her, and so she's with her mother, and they've caught Darvard, and they've roped up the king, the queen, and the royal family in the castle. But so the fight breaks out, and her father's like, just get the people to safety, get the people out of here, because their father's people, the men, they split into two camps. Half of them want to follow him and stay there. He offers them to stay at the Trellence and they'll get and the other half want to go back and do what they were sent to do. So they start a fight between the two, between the gang. I don't know how you would put it, the army. So the Cordon Warriors, there's two factions. So they start a fight. They start fighting each other. Eula takes the people, the villagers, back to the castle where they'll be safe in there. And then when she comes back, her father's like, there is a cure for white fever, because Roll, who becomes infected, starts to turn, and there's nothing they can do to defeat him, but he starts killing everybody indiscriminately. So her father tells her there's a cure, but you have to go find it. It's in the treasures of old. So she runs off to go and find the treasures of old, and she finds that the treasures that they have left behind, his Lord Zethron has taken them. He's trying to get away with it. So she realizes that, oh, he was just a chancer. He was just trying to get money and get away and steal from everybody and just get away with it. So she manages to find the what's it? Not a vaccine, but the cure inside the one of the boxes that has all the treasures inside it. And then she runs back and she's too late. Her father has been he's been injured, like fatally injured. So they managed to say their last farewell to each other, and unfortunately, her father passes away. But the fight in between the rest of them, it dies down because that was really the big issue. Like that was a big thing that was happening there. So her people are freed now. Darvard is captured, and then we don't hear what happens to him. I was going to reveal that in the book too, but we'll see if that actually does happen. And so they know that they have defeated Mycroft for now, but they know that in the future he may come, more of his army may come back, or he may come after them. So there's peace for now. And so the king asks Trendon, and a few of the other people that came with her, what is your one wish? And Trendon wishes to be with Eula. And Eula knows that she wants to be, she knows that she's in love with Trendon. She wants to be with him. And she knows that there's going to be a lot of other things that they're going to have to deal with, like a lot of, backlash they'll have to deal with. But she decides that that's all she cares about. So it ends with them hugging each other, telling each other that they love each other and giving each other a kiss. And then, that's the end of the book for, the Trellence.
So I just heard a confirmation for book 2. I just heard that. You just said in book 2.
I don't know. I don't want to promise you anything. I don't want to promise you.
I just heard. Look, Ed, yep. I just heard a confirmation. No, I mean, one, I was like kind of devastated. Like, she just gets the pops back. Then he's wounded in war. And there's still this culmination of like having a whole bunch of unresolved issues just basically within the two societies as a whole. Now we're at this middle ground with the Abyss and everything that she's learned like up until this point, and then she still finds it in her heart to say like, okay, this is my dude, yes, Trendon, let's do this. And then also making sure that she's mentally counting the cost for like everything that's to come if I do say yes to this guy. And then so I'm like, how can there not be a book 2? That's just, I'm just gonna lay it out there. I'm just gonna lay it out there.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely there has to be a book 2. I was just, I told you I was happy about her father, and then that damn Darvard, when he was just stealing the trying to steal the treasures, that made me mad. that made me mad. So the book had me just up and down. And then, with Eula and Trendon confessing their feelings and all that, I was like, okay, that's good. I'm happy to see that. It just ties everything together.
Yeah, so a couple things. Yes, book 2, we're waiting for it. Another thing, yes, obviously, after all this time, not seeing your dad and then finally reconnected with him and then he dies, dang, that sucks. But then to think about like, so you mean to tell me you had this antidote for white fever your whole life, you've known about it, you just didn't know what it was, and now to understand that it's actually the cure for something that everybody basically said was uncurable, and like who all really knew the story behind this, and why wasn't this story told to everybody? What's the big secret you were trying to keep? Were you just trying to keep people out? Things of that nature. And then the last thing too that I was thinking of is, and I don't know why I even got to thinking about this at this point, like at the beginning of the story, obviously you find out that Eula's, but we know that her pet is called like Squirrely or something. And so we like, well, how do we know that? Like, did she talk to somebody and tell them? And like, is she secretly talking with somebody? And so this is how we know this? I don't know. My mind was just going off in different places. So, I'm weird like that.
No, that's great. Actually, I had some questions that I hadn't really thought about there, so that's good.
And then like the whole piece to the antidote, being readily available in there, again, bringing it back in like today's world, like a lot of the stuff that people go through now, it's not always a pharmaceutical fix that's needed. Sometimes it's just about herbs and knowing natural medicine. And so with them having the cure, I'm like, okay, so how does this tie into what's to come? In a book 2, are we going to see like the dissolution of white fever as a whole, or is there going to be some new enemy to pop up, some new plague that's going to pop up? So I mean, the story can go in a lot of different directions here. And then like the only thing I wish I had more was like the queen was such a name I won't say on here, but like just even like a backstory on her, just like, because I think that was one of those characters I was like, ooh, dang, I wish there was like a showdown between Eula and her. Like that would have been interesting somehow to kind of tie that in. But
I
no,
see. True.
kudos to
Good
you.
idea.
Kudos to you.
Good
That
idea.
that was the Trellence. They're missing out if they haven't read it. Like this book was dope. We definitely hope there's more to come, but like, yeah, you guys got to pick this one up. It was so much more than just fantasy, so much more than just mythical creatures. Like there was a lot of stuff like pulled out of like modern day today wrapped up into this story, and then we get to view it through Annabelle's gaze, and it was amazing. So kudos to you, sis. It was a great book.
Yes,
And thank
definitely
you all.
fast pace. It's definitely
Very
a book
fast paced. Yeah.
that you should read twice.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
think the
definitely
pacing
read
was
this
spot
twice.
on.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So really quick, we got a few minutes left to wrap everything up. Annabelle, what do you have coming down the pipeline? What's going on with you?
Okay, so I am now working on a 8-part series. It's an urban fantasy series. Yeah, and I'm on book 1, so I'm hoping to get there soon, but we'll see. And I'm also writing a love fantasy love story, another series, maybe 3-part series in that one. So yeah, just juggling between the two at the moment.
All right.
How about you? How about you, Simone? Because I know you've got some things in the pipeline, right?
Oh, I know. It keeps changing from day to day, but I really started to buckle down on an actual children's book. I don't want to tell about what it's about just yet because I really hope that I could share it with y'all, my fam first, and get your guys' feedback on that. I'm doing the illustrations and everything, but then also working on another dystopian saga. I'm not sure if it'll end up being a series, but just yeah, I keep changing my mind and jumping from project to project, but at this moment, as of today, April, this month, I feel confident about the ones I'm working on. May tell me something different, but I'm here. So, all right, Ed, I'm throwing it to you.
I'm just, looking
You
for the
found you
next.
found something for us though, right?
Just looking for the next book to read
Yeah.
and listening to the Above the Read podcast. I didn't listen to the whole podcast and the author, the whole interview,
Hmm.
but just caught a snippet of it. And anyways, this is I bought it, and I'm wondering if you guys would like to read this. Lies on Bristol Lake by Jean Nicole Rivers.
Yeah.
This is the next one I'm gonna dive into.
Okay. Yeah, Ed sent me the synopsis. That one sounds like we might have some words for this book too. So that I think that might be a good pick, Ed. Chev, what's going on with you?
Well, just staying busy at work and trying to get some more things down the pipeline with Tetra. Still got a lot of work on the back end trying to build out some in-house things so I can have the full facility on hand. But we got some housing situations to get through too. So, but once we get all that done, then I can finally get all my equipment together, get some nice space for me to be able to work in, and hopefully that'll be a smooth transition to bringing everything in-house and making it more efficient. Say that for sure, more efficient. So.
All right. That is what's up.
Right on.
Yeah, so I mean, love you, Annabelle. Thank you for letting us
Oh,
get through
thank
the
you so much.
trellings.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
we'll have
everybody.
this one up for the people. You guys make sure you go tap in and get this book. You will not be disappointed. I'm telling you. Yep. Put mine in the camera. You will not be disappointed. Until next time, we got another book clubbing coming at you guys soon. Stay tuned to all of our social media. I'm going to link everybody together so you can find us and follow us. And yeah, all right, guys.
Bye.